So I know you said you do with your students, you do a lot of identity work and kind of delve into their social class, gender, sexuality. So what exactly are the best resources or methods that you found to support these students' psychological well-being and personal growth?
Yeah, so I was trained at Teachers College, and we did a lot of racial identity work at Teachers College. And so I follow a lot of those sort of methods and theoretical frames. Um, I look at all of the work that's related to microaggressions and what that all means and how that plays out. And while one of my mentors coined the term microaggressions, a lot of the work that I do, as I say, they're really not micro. Like it all hurts, right? It's an aggression because when you say microaggression, it sort of assumes that it's just a little thing, and a little thing might not matter as much, but it's all an aggression. So I go to the sort of microaggression literature. And also, Yale's Child Study Center um, actually began this sort of SEL work, the social and emotional work, in looking at kids in under-resourced communities and understanding that, some of this work around resilience and emotional development, really needed to happen in an effort to make young people stronger. Um, so some of the conversations that I have with colleagues who are in academia is, yes, we want to provide more robust academic programming for our young people, but young people are not just um, an academic. They're humans, and we have to speak to that human side as well. And we have to socialize that human side, and we have to build up that human side in order for them to be successful academically.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that well-being is so, so crucial in terms of furthering education and allows you to have such a different perspective and kind of approach even in your education. So I really, really admire that. And kind of along the same lines of doing that racial identity work and kind of looking at that, how do you incorporate anti-racist practices into the programs that you develop and manage at Oliver Scholars?
I think what's most important is to look at everything through an equity lens and understanding that one size does not fit all. I think a lot of organizations go into the one size fits all, and they don't really differentiate within, the organization around this doesn't work for everybody. So when you're looking at things through an anti-racist, or as I say, through an equity lens, you're examining all policies and practices. You're looking at engagement. How are we engaging? You're understanding what we call our white cultural norms, and how does that push into your organization? And when people fall outside of these white cultural norms, are we pathologizing them? Are we saying what you're doing is not quote unquote normal? Or are we able to understand sort of the baseline experience that young people are coming with and working from that perspective? For me, that's more anti-racist. You know, um, some people start with, let's infuse more diversity within the readings and within the curriculum. And absolutely, we need to do all of that. But I do feel it's also about engaging and understanding what historically has been taught us as what's normal versus what's not normal. Um, that's not really looking at things through an equity lens, is going by what's normal and what's not normal, because what's normal to me might not be normal to you. Um, it's also about what we talk about at Oliver, you know, the hiring piece of making sure as we hire staff and they're coming into the organization that they're understanding that we're looking at everything through an equity lens and they're in partnership around that whole equity piece. So at Oliver, that's how we look at the sort of anti-racist pieces, is understanding structurally what goes on in this society and what our young people are confronted with on a day-to-day, especially because they're coming from under-resourced communities. And then looking at all of our policies and practices and how are these policies and practices following what we call sort of white cultural norms that might not really fit for our population. So it's a full dig in across the board.
Yeah, definitely. How has this impact kind of manifested in your day-to-day work? Like, looking through an equity lens is so, so, so important. I guess what are kind of tangible pieces that you look to that you see that this has been super meaningful? This is really working.
I think in the success of students, I mean, when you think about working at an organization, the whole purpose of an organization, at least for our organization, is for a young person to be successful. What do we mean by that? Like, how do we operationalize be successful? Well, for us, it's for the young people to go through their high school and be able to go through their high school, come out on the other side of high school, being psychologically and emotionally healthy, to want to work in service to others, to get into college, absolutely. But I think for us, you know, we're trying to look at growing the individual and understanding that if we effectively grow the individual, they'll do great things. They'll get into school, they'll do great things on their campuses, in college. Many of our young people are doing great things in their schools. But it's actually making sure that our young people know and understand the world in which we live in. And we have to live that within our organization to say that if we're looking at being anti-racist, we've got to first look within ourselves, not just as individuals, but as an organization. In order to make things happen for you all, we have to make sure that what we do as an organization represents all that we we want you to represent. And I think what's interesting is that some organizations that work with Black and Brown children automatically assume that they don't have to begin to look within, but everybody has to look within from the board on down. How are we rolling out what we do? Are we rolling it out equitably, or are we rolling it out in the ways in which we're supposed to do it historically? So, like I said, that's sort of the short answer of a more complicated question.
So as we wrap up our conversation with you today, we wanted to leave off with your thoughts looking forward. How can institutions prioritize becoming more proactive rather than reactive in ensuring inclusion, accessibility, and education?
I think there has to be buy-in initially, because you can have an institution that wants to be proactive, but if all their stakeholders are not bought in, it's not going to work. And I've seen stuff as early as last week from, an institution that we're working with, whereby there was not a holistic sort of buy-in from all the stakeholders. And inevitably, you can't roll out what you want to roll out, and you can't be proactive. So it's really important that stakeholders know and understand the value of what you want to do. And once everybody's on board, you can effectively roll out anti-racist practices. You can effectively roll out equity initiatives, but without buy-in from all the stakeholders, it's not going to happen.
Well, thank you so much, Deidre. That was wonderful. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to speak with us and to share your thoughts to the empowered community.
For having me, and thank you for this platform.
And to our audience, thank you so much for watching this episode. If you want to learn more about Oliver Scholars and their mission, please check out their website at oliverscholars.org. Goodbye.